Welcome to the Indie PPC podcast. I am your host, Joey Bidner, and in today's episode, I want to go over an important workflow that I have when launching a new campaign. And in particular, we're going to talk about using a Google Sheet to store all this data, to build the ad copy, the keyword list outside of Google Ads into this template, dare I say. But the process of having a placeholder for this structure, your ad copy and keywords, for the purpose of reviewing it with your client, and again, having a placeholder outside of Google Ads for this process in account management. So I am going to be sharing a Google Sheet that you can get in the show notes. When you click the link, it's going to take you to the option to copy it. Once you copy this sheet, you will have your own copy for you to work in. So before I get into the details of this sheet, I want to talk a little bit again about why use it. So the most important part, or I guess before I get to the most important part, a couple of the small, quick reasons to use it is one, it's happened to me 1,000 times. You spend all this time in Google Ads, in the UI, building out your ad copy only for the system to crash and you lose all your work. I can't tell you how often that happens. Not because of failing internet connection, which could also happen, but because the system can just crash and I've lost my work there before. So I like to have all my work for, again, specifically ad copy in a Google Sheet so it's held there forever. And that brings me to the next point. It's held there forever. Whenever I need to make a new ad group for this specific client, I have one place that holds all of our ad copy from previous ad groups and allows me to easily pull pieces of ad copy from one ad group into the other. Because a lot of the times, the value propositions remain the same. There's always going to be key pieces of ad copy that just remain constant through all your ads. And again, the Google Ads UI makes it a lot more laborious to copy and paste from one ad to the other. So I like having it for that reason as well. But the most important part of this is client review. Having a working document where you can share your screen over a client call or share the document with them so you can both kind of review the structure and ad copy together is one of the most important parts of onboarding clients. This is an important step in onboarding, but again, launching anything new. But I think the real important part is onboarding a new client because you haven't quite worked out yet the tone of the ad copy you want to hit. As ads managers, we're always using our best practices in writing ad copy, but a big part is having that ad copy reflect the tone of the client. So they need to be in that process in some capacity. I still like to do all the ad copy writing because, again, I find sometimes the business owner is not the best person to write ad copy because sometimes they'll get too technical. They will speak the language that they speak to other industry professionals, not somebody on the outside who needs more simple language of maybe a niche industry, but also they're less familiar with specific calls to action or the specific strategies that we all use to make a diversified list of headlines. I won't be getting into that today. That's a topic for another video. Today's discussion is all about just the workflow of using this sheet and getting used to using this placeholder for our ad copy and structure. So you'll notice when you click on the link, there's a few tabs. Now, the first tab, I always like to have a structure overview. Now, by structure overview, I mean a visual representation of the campaign and ad group structure. We need to remember that the business owner, our client, might not necessarily have as strong of an understanding of the hierarchy within an account. By that, what I mean is ad group to campaigns, the segmentation of campaigns. As we talk about it, it might be all kind of just jumbled up in their head, and it's important for us to visually lay this out for them. So as we're talking about each ad group, we can go back to this visual image that they now have in their mind so they know what we're talking about. So the first tab you're going to see, I actually just take a screenshot from I like to use an app called Freeform. It's a free app on my computer that allows me just to create blocks and put words on them. And you'll see I like the campaigns are the top blocks, they're all blue, and underneath them are yellow ad groups. So you can just see here are the campaigns, here are the ad groups. Very simple. You can also like use Google Sheets for this. There is a tool to put blocks with text, but I just find it's a little bit, it's not really a great tool in Google Sheets. So I like to just use Freeform and then just screenshot what I build there and put it on this first tab. So you will see a screenshot of this on the first tab. You can just click and delete it, or delete the tab if you want even, but that first tab I like to dedicate to the structure. Now, when you go to the second tab, it's pretty simple. There's no rocket science behind this. It's just each tab represents an ad group, and column A are the keywords that we have for that ad group. Column B is the negative keywords. I won't go too crazy on negatives here because usually we get our negatives from our search terms that grow over time. But sometimes I like to still ask the client, what are some parts of the industry that they know they really want to stay away from? Maybe you put the competitor names in here that you know you don't want in your search terms. So it's just a starting point for negative keywords. Then you will see a column for headlines, and next to that, a column for the character count, which is huge because in any working document with your client, you need to point out to them that there is a character limit. And then same thing for descriptions, right? This isn't rocket science. It's just a placeholder for all of our keywords and the corresponding ad copy. And typically what I like to do is have a tab for each ad group, and then I'll color code all the tabs that belong to the campaign. So all the ad groups that belong to one campaign, I'll color code green. And you can do that by just right clicking on the tab and change the color. It's pretty simple as that. I also have a tab for extensions. So you can put your site link extensions and callouts here. Yeah, pretty simple. I know for demand gen, there is a larger character count, right? Where it's, I think it's 40 or 45, forget off the top of my head. And you can just change the character count recommendation in the column for characters, but it's just a rolling count. It's not like it's going to stop the user from typing more in. It's just to give you an idea. Okay, our limit is 30 or our limit is 40. Keep an eye on them as you're writing them. So one more thing I want to mention is that I know that there are some sheets out there that you can directly import to Google Ads, and it will import everything that you have in your sheet to your ads. This is not one of those. This is not an importable sheet. I find that those sheets can be a little bit more confusing to read, and we got to remember the key point of doing this is to review this content with the client. So we want it as visually simple as possible. So for that reason, I don't use one of those importable templates that sure makes it a little bit easier for me in the end. My goal is to make this easier for the client. And then it doesn't take that long to just copy paste headlines and keywords into your ad groups later on. You can also use Google Ads Editor. Google Ads Editor is a great place to edit ad copy in large, like if you have to remove certain headlines from a lot of ad groups, or like I said at the top of the show, I like using this methodology for copying ad copy from previous ad groups into new ones. That's what Ads Editor is really good for as well. But again, it's got its own workflow and it's complicated to view. I like doing this for the ease of the client, and in the end, it becomes a process that's easy for me as well. So pretty simple from me today. I just wanted to share this workflow because I can't stress enough how important it is to get off on the right foot with your client. And I find going over this process is always really appreciated. I think a lot of clients get this experience sometimes at working with managers where when it comes to the tone of their business, it's all in their hands. They don't see that much of it unless they log into the account, but then they're distracted by all the buttons. Sometimes, depending on the client, I like to keep them out of the account simply for their ease of understanding the topic of today, right? If you bring them into Google Ads to start looking at ad copy, they might get distracted by the optimization score, and they'll get distracted by pinning, and they'll get distracted by all these things. Where no, the purpose of today is just to align ourselves on your keyword list and the tone of our ad copy. So sometimes what I'll also do is, in this live discussion of the ad copy, if there's a line that they're not quite sure about, right? You don't necessarily have an answer in that moment to change it to create the perfect line, but I'll just highlight it in red or highlight it in yellow as a problem headline that I'll then revisit afterwards to spend more time with. Maybe use ChatGPT to wiggle the line around to get it to that spot that they're happy with the tone. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. This is a very quick and simple episode from me today. You'll find the link for this in the show notes, and if any of you have questions you want answered on the show, I love diving into a topic from a listener. So feel free to either drop a comment on the YouTube video or send me an email at info@joeybidner.com, and I will see you next time.